And we are live. Jyväskylä, how are you doing tonight? Music to my ears. Welcome to the first Expa meetup of the year. I'm your hostess Wanda O'Reilly, and this event is brought to you by our DGC partners, JAMK University of Applied Sciences, Business Development Services of Jyväskylä, Fingersoft, DeskMe, Seltimil, Keski-Suomen Konttoripiste, and Game Makers of Finland. As you can see, there are so many partners, I have to read them from my phone because I cannot remember them otherwise. Few practical things. I see some new faces in the audience as well. Toilets you can find in the main lobby and also from the back of the building. They are all unisex, so use whatever is free. We have also improved our recruiting and community activities by setting up a sign-up board just out like in front of the front door, so you can now easily become a member of Expa just by reading the QR code there, or you can visit anytime expa.fi on your browser and just join us and support. Also, you don't have to be a member to be a official member of the cooperative to be a member of the community, so you can join all our events no matter what's your background and so on. And also join our digital channel in Slack, where we have some 400 professionals all around Finland, and it's a great opportunity not only to find jobs and projects and networking, but also friends and other game-related activities. Usually in our meetups we have the demo corner as well. Tonight there are no games to present, but basically if you have any project you're working on, anything that you would like to showcase, we hone the Finnish demo scene by always enabling that opportunity. So keep that in mind as well. One other thing, who was in the Finnish Game Jam? Woo! So many hands, and I bet there are more online. That's great, because, well, as you know, these activities that we have in the game industry outside of just the pure business, they are mostly about the community. And the Finnish game developing community is very beautiful. We share information very openly, and we create awesome events and allow creativity to sparkle in all its forms. So thank you for that. And we are also honing that tonight in this meetup, where we are, well, basically providing premium learning content about game business related topics. And today we're gonna dive really deep into the mobile games by, well, you know, a big expert of the topic. Just before we go into the main program, I advise you to write down your questions during the presentation so that you can remember them when there's the opportunity for Q&A, which will be about in half an hour. So people online, write the questions down to the chat. I will prompt them here with the mic. And for the people on site, we will have the catchbox mic going around, so just raise your hand and we can spark the discussion. Also, if you're taking pictures, sharing those on social media, remember to use hashtag Expa or tag ExpaJKL and also DGCJKL, so Digi and Game Center, where we are right now. But yeah, I believe that's enough blabber for the beginning. Tonight we have a very special guest. CEO and co-founder of Metacore, Mika Tammenkoski, is here to share his insights to the current state of the mobile games industry. And I believe I'm done talking, so without further ado, give a big hand for Mika.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I have been spending the day first visiting the university, and then JAMK, and I think, and now here, and seeing and feeling this energy, I think it's really great place to be in. So thanks for having me. Do I need to change the?
Yeah, I forgot that. So it's the tab over there.
Yeah. Yes, like this. All right. I have this dual laptop set up now. So I'm here to talk to you about, am I standing on the way? How to stand out in mobile in 2024. how many of you know Metacore? Excellent. Almost all hands raised up. I guess some of you heard about me the first time today when I was visiting the university in Jamk. How many of you know Merge Mansion? How many of you play Merge Mansion? All right, still, yes, that's great. All right, so a bit about me to get started. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Metacore. I have been working in the games industry for over 25 years by now. I started in '96 working for a company called Remedy Entertainment. Remedy nowadays, they are known for Alan Wake 2, Max Payne, and so forth. In '96, the company looked really different, as did the whole industry in Finland, and also to a large extent globally. I have really stereotypical background to be working in games myself. We got as a family our first home computer in early '80s, Commodore VIC-20. How many of you know any of those computers? Not too many, some. And I discovered games through that computer, and I formed this child dream of making games when I grow up, and I was naive enough to hold on to that dream, and lucky enough to be employed in the industry early on. But as said, I'm really a stereotypical person to be working in games. I couldn't do art, so back then there were only two disciplines, art and programming. I couldn't do art, so I became a programmer. I'm not really a good programmer, but I could do that. Moving on to Metacore. So shortly about Metacore, we are focusing on developing and publishing mobile games. We have launched our first game called Merge Mansion in 2020, September 2020. So it's now 3.5 years old. It's amazing to think about that. I still feel like we are only getting started. There are so many things that we want to implement into the game and get done. The game has been downloaded about 50 million times by now. In 22, our revenue was roughly 130 million euros. Last year, we still saw double-digit growth. This year, we are still envisioning growing just based on Merge Mansion. Our goal is to be building a portfolio of games, so Merge Mansion being the first one. And we want to be building the kind of games that people can play for years to come. Games for mass market, basically. We have, over the years, we have grown quite a bit. So in 2020, when we launched Merge Mansion, we were a team of 15 people, 15. Today, we are over 200. So we have seen a lot of growth. We still haven't reached the limit, so we still believe that to be able to serve our players in the best possible way, we have to grow our team. We haven't reached the limit of content for players. We have our headquarters in Helsinki, and recently we also announced that we are expanding to Berlin as well. Our first hit game, Merge Mansion, is known for its strong brand and story. And why this approach? Why do we focus so much on the brand and on the IP? And why do we think that it's a great strategy for 2024 and onwards from here? To get to this, I'll take a bit of a detour and talk a bit about the recent history of mobile games. If we look at mobile games from 2012 onwards, for the next 10 years, mobile games grew exponentially. There was basically 10x growth in the decade. But then, in 22, the market declined for the first time. And of course, there are multiple reasons for this. We had the pandemic, which actually games industry was one of the industries that benefited from that people couldn't go out to restaurants, to go watch movies, to enjoy entertainment out of their homes. So it was natural that people were able to play games at their home. But also, there were some other factors. I was asked when this happened that is this the end of mobile? Some people thought that is this the end of mobile industry, end of mobile games? And what's next? Like if is it NFTs, or maybe it's other platforms, or maybe it's cross-platform? What's next? And even media was asking, like, is this it? the environment did look dire for many reasons. They were the IDFA change from Apple. It was end of pandemic. People were again able to consume entertainment outside of their homes. There was the global economic situation. There was war in Europe. So many reasons for that. In 2023, the market still declined, but we believe that we saw the bottom of the market last year, and now we might be at the bottom, or we might be on the way up. But things still aren't looking rosy. The competition is really intense, and it will only intensify. So if you look at these headlines, releasing a successful new title has never been more difficult, and this is likely to be worse in 2024 if and when Google officially launches the Android Privacy Sandbox, the IDFA equivalent of Apple's. Mobile gaming still hasn't found its footing since Apple focused on privacy over targeted ads. It will be trickier than ever to release a new live service game in game's competitive landscape, and Xbox will make a strategic move to the mobile market. So a lot of dark clouds up in the sky. So what to think about this? What to take out of all of this? Now I will actually take it even a longer detour. So let's look at commercial video games. Commercial video games have existed for only about 50 years. The first commercial games, so these were arcade and first home consoles, were released in early 70s. 80s was about home computers, 90s was about PC and the first more advanced consoles. Then we saw Nokia Snake, 97, iMode in Japan, 99, the first Java phones in Western markets, 2001 onwards. There were browser games, there were casual gamers. There was iPhone, 2007, and then App Store following 2008 onwards. Android followed quickly behind that. All this evolution. So 50 years is a respectable time, right? 50 years of mobile of games, commercial games overall. To again get more perspective, games are part of the global entertainment industry. I like drawing inspiration from other areas of entertainment. I think we have really great history in entertainment. So let's look at brief history of movies. Commercial movies have been around for about 130 years. And again, this is commercial. In 1895, there was the first public screening of movie. And back then, the movie theater, it was this box that you peeked into. There was a small hole in there. It was like one-person movie theater. And the video clip that it was showing was shorter than modern TikTok videos. So it was really short clip. But still, yet, it was the first public screening. People paid to actually see that. Sound, color, technical capabilities, it took about 40 years for sound, color, and other technical capabilities to evolve for the movies to remind us of the movies as they are today. In 41, Citizen Kane revolutionized storytelling in movies. So about 50 years, almost 50 years into movies, there was the first movie that revolutionized storytelling, which now seems obvious to us. Of course, the movies are about stories. Of course, we see a certain way of telling stories in movies. 1963, there was The Birds from Alfred Hitchcock. How many of you have seen that movie? Quite a few. I saw that movie. I was way too young when I saw that. I really liked Hitchcock's movies when I was a child, and I think it was a great movie. But the thing that really puzzled me for a long time was that the main character in that movie, who's played by Tippi Hedren, the character is built all the way to about halfway the movie, and then she dies in the bird attack, and nothing comes out of it. And even as a child, I was confused about why did this happen, and I just couldn't figure it out. But then I learned later on that most likely the reason for this is that I was grown up with more modern Western movies. And there's a person called Sid Field. he adapted Aristotle's three-act structure for modern movies, and that became the de facto way of making modern Hollywood movies. This happened in the end of 70s only. And basically that took over the Hollywood movie industry really quickly. So that became the de facto way of how movies are being made. And the three-act structure, if you think of the Birds, it didn't really follow the three-act structure in the end. Then in 2005, there's a book called Save the Cat, the last book on screenwriting you'll ever need. So that's about more than 100 years into movies. And then we get, again, a new de facto Bible for how movies are being created. And then it doesn't even end there. So it continues, it keeps on going. So 130 years of commercial movies. I think that's really amazing history. We can look at TV to compare what's been going on in there. So it's been about 90 years of commercial TV. The first television station, the world commercial station, was launched in 1928. Of course, at first TV was about real-time programs covering weather, news, and so on. They were all kind of these talking programs, newscasts, and such. There was TV show craze. In 1951, there was a TV series called I Love Lucy. It was the first big-scale TV series shot in front of live audience with multiple camera setup. So it reminded us of the more modern TV series, but it was still, the idea was that it's in front of a live audience. Lucy herself became the first TV celebrity herself. So this is about 20-25 years into the history of TV. Then I think one landmark which I can remember is 1981, Hill Street Blues. How many of you remember Hill Street Blues or have seen Hill Street Blues? Not that many, but still quite a few. So Hill Street Blues was the first TV show with sophisticated multi-layered narratives. So the plot lines didn't last only for that one single episode, but they spanned multiple episodes and even seasons. It was more like a modern TV series. And I remember that still. I was probably way too young to watch it back then, but I think it felt different, and it was more interesting and like really unique in its way. And then of course there were many others that followed quickly after that. But only in 1981, so if you think about it, like 50 years into TV, history of TV, we see more sophisticated TV series that reminds us of the way that TV series are today. And then of course eventually, like if you think of the recent history of TV, the past 15 years of TV, from 2007 onwards, Netflix launched their first streaming service, and that of course changed everything again. So if you think about how much has happened in the past 15 years in TV, I think I think at least for me, so about 20 years ago still movies were the primary entertainment experience for me, but then nowadays it's about TV series. I really enjoyed watching TV series more, and it's because of how the TV series have changed. So what's my point with all of this? So 130 years of movies, commercial movies, 90 years of commercial TV, 50 years of commercial games. So 50 years, that's still quite respectable. But if you think of mobile, thank you. It's not even 15 years of mobile. So depending on where we start counting, like 97 from Nokia Snake, maybe from there, or then the first downloadable games, or then maybe free-to-play. Free-to-play is only 1 decade old, and free-to-play made a huge shift, as we saw in the beginning of the presentation. It was a huge shift in the market overall. So the point is, it's clear that this is only the beginning of the story for mobile games, but also for games. Think about 130 years of movies, 90 years of TV, the past 15 years of TV. Like, we have only seen the beginning for games overall, especially mobile games. So with this perspective, let's go back to mobile again. So I talked about the free-to-play really started in 2012 onwards. If we go back to 2008, I don't know how many of you were in the industry back then, but there were things like, we were talking about, for example, Race to the Bottom. So back then, games were not free to play yet. Games were paid, so you paid to download. When it comes to the prices of games, they started from like 10 USD, 5 USD, 3 USD, but because we as developers didn't have any means to compete in the market, we competed by price. So we went to the lower and lower price point to try to get volume of downloads. The lifetime value of mobile games ended up being 1 USD, because that was the price point that we charged for our games. And out of that, platform holders took 30%. So we got 70 cents out of one download. So what does that mean? We couldn't afford marketing. We basically relied on platform holders to do the marketing. We hoped for featuring, that Apple and Google would feature us. That was the form of marketing we did. This is 15 years ago, or less, about 15 years ago, or even less than that. And now it's crazy to think about that. Like, it's such a recent event. Money spent in mobile games marketing on an annual basis was almost like a rounding error. It was basically zero. And really, 15 years ago. And if you think what has happened since that. Like I said, 2012 onwards, free-to-play broke through in the Western markets, and that changed everything. So free-to-play enabled higher LTV. It freed us in a way from the like App Store. And what did higher LTV enable? It enabled, for example, marketing. We could actually invest into growing these games. Marketing budgets started growing, but then also competition started getting more and more intense. It was already quite intense, but we had seen nothing up to that point. And then we started seeing all kind of misleading ads, even fake ads in the market. There were companies competing for space in the industry. I don't know how many of you remember. How many of you remember Firecraft, Matchington Mansion? Not anyone. How many of you know Playrix games? Homescapes, Gardenscapes? Yes, a lot. Many of you. So there was in 2018 there was a battle between Firecraft, the company behind Matchington Mansion, and Playrix. They were competing for market share, and that battle changed the whole way of how marketing is done. They learned from each other new marketing tactics, like really the KPI game, and that again started a completely new era of marketing for mobile games. So that gets us to today. So 2024, mobile games, it's a highly saturated market. We are all competing in this red ocean. Or are we actually a saturated market? Is this a market that hasn't got any space for new companies to begin with, or hasn't got any space to compete in? So how do mature saturated markets or companies in highly saturated markets compete? Like if we think of markets where the product is commodity, for example, they basically compete with their brand. So, practical example. If you think of crisps, for example, the product is commodity, and then you differentiate. There are some different flavors, but then you differentiate with your brand. Or another more extreme example, Red Bull energy drink. It is an energy drink, but then if you think of all the crazy campaigns and events that Red Bull has organized, it's about differentiating with brand. Then if you look at mobile games market, how do mobile games compete today? And I think to a large extent also like some other games, they compete with UA. So that's about the user acquisition, performance marketing. It's about the tactical side of things. And I think the question we should be asking ourselves is mobile games really such a different industry that this is justified? Are the dynamics in this industry so different that this is the best way to play the game long term? Or is the reason actually that the market actually is not that competitive yet? That this is in the current market, this is the way to compete, but that it wouldn't be longer lasting than that. My opinion is that games is such a young industry, and especially mobile games, that we are even immature. We are far from being mature industry. I think actually it will take most likely decades for us to be a mature industry and to be such a competitive industry that we believe that it is today. And we have been talking about the market being really competitive for the past 10 years or 10 plus years even. It's always been really competitive, and we have always thought that there's no room for new startups to be born. But then time after time, it has turned out not to be true. It's always, when we are in the current moment, it feels that we are in a super competitive environment, but then in hindsight, it has not been the case. So then the question is that the case today? Is that really the case? I think this is a moment when we should be looking at other industries. What has been the evolution in other industries? And also, I think we can look into more traditional games, what has happened there. And I think there's a lot of guidance and inspiration that we can draw from these other industries. The thing that we believe is that strong brands create things to talk about. They become topics in themselves. And they are things that are more enduring and captivating than just one product. So this IP, the brands, they become bigger thing than what the product in the end is. These are some of the brands I used to grow up with, not Clash of Clans, but Super Mario, Sonic, Star Wars. We have 4 and 6 year old boys at home, and it's been really eye-opening and crazy that so they are not allowed to play games yet. The 6-year-old, maybe before he goes to school, we will start playing games, but they haven't been playing games except for the Pikku Kakkonen game on mobile so far, only educational games. But they already, like one day, I was really confused about seeing them at the kindergarten playing Super Mario, and they took the roles of these different characters. And they didn't have, it was not like they all wanted to be Super Mario, but they took different roles, and they acted on how the game actually plays. Maybe they had picked it up from older ones, maybe some of them are able to play already, but they were acting Super Mario. And I recognized the brand immediately. They were jumping and doing all these kind of things. Then there was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was a thing, and is a thing for these. Sonic was there. Star Wars, it's a huge thing. Pokemon became a thing. We started, they wanted to start collecting Pokemons. And these brands, they didn't come from me, even though I used to grow up with these brands. But they picked those up through the popular culture and through their friends in kindergarten. I think that is the strength of a brand. And if you think about it, like these kind of brands and how crazy strong they are still even today. So if we look at other industries, consumer industries, FMCG, for example, fast-moving consumer goods, the brand is even bigger differentiating thing. So why wouldn't it be for us? Why wouldn't it be for games at large? Right now, especially if you look at mobile games, only few companies really invest into brand. I think it should be most companies if this would be a competitive market. And I think we should really set the level of ambition really high. I think this is one example of that, and I think this is a really great example. The Star Wars. We all know Star Wars. To someone, it's a book. To someone else, it's a film. To some, it's the game. To some, it's the characters. There are so many variations of Star Wars. I think I really admire the way the whole Star Wars universe has been built. I think this is what we should be aspiring for in any kinds of games, but especially in mobile, in my opinion. So our mission is to entertain hundreds of millions of people for decades, and we don't only want to entertain people through our games. We don't see that we are only a games company, but we also want to entertain people through our ads. People see them as short films, many of them. and also through events and online communities. Communities are really a big thing as well. And our ambition at Metacore is to create iconic brands that are more than a game. And that's the way to make a game that can last for decades to come. So if you think of games, if you think of a game that is 10 plus years old, or a game like World of Warcraft that's 2 decades, 20 years old, the tech itself has most likely been changed many times, written many times over, refactored. The art has been redone and so forth. But the IP is what lasts. And the game is still going strong, maybe even stronger than ever. So we also want to be creating games that are more than only an app in your phone. And how we do this? We do it first of all through the high quality creatives, short stories. We do it through actors and actresses who are well known. We're leveraging actors' brands to build our brand and reach new audiences. So we did a bigger campaign with Kathy Bates in 22. And then we did a campaign with Pedro Pascal last year. And we are always asking, what would surprise and entertain our players? So we think players first. So I think to conclude, so I really believe that games is still a young industry, and I'm really bullish about games overall. The biggest growth is only ahead of us. I'm really bullish about mobile. That reaches really vast audiences. But I'm also really enthusiastic about and bullish about any area of games. The competition is intense, but it will only continue to intensify. And that means that we have to level up. We have to try harder. We have to be smarter, do things better, and really, I believe, start from the players. How are we best able to entertain these players? There are many ways to win this in this market, and I'm not saying that everybody should be using brand as a way. So we are doing this. I'm not saying that we all should be doing that, but I think the current way that we mostly operate in this UA-driven market, it's short-sighted, and it doesn't help the market grow. It's more about capitalizing on the market as it is today, but it's not forward-looking. I think there are. If I think about the games industry, there have always been concerns about where we are as an industry and what is the future. Like about 20 years ago, when I was making these downloadable Java games, there were like different kind of concerns. One concern back then was whether games, these kind of more casual games, whether they are like cartoons, so they are geared towards smaller audience, or whether they can really reach their potential of reaching out to a bigger audience, to really be about mass market. Another concern was about poor quality of games, because back then there were players who were making huge portfolios of games, but not really emphasizing the quality. I think, and now looking back, it's really obvious to see that like these problems were really like, they were not really problems in the end even. They were concerns, but they didn't materialize. I think like today, what we should be asking is like, what takes mobile games and games industry overall, how can we take it to the next level? What are the things that we should be really thinking about and working on? How are we able to be really player-centric and think about the customers first? And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mika. That was so sophisticated and educational, looking at other industries to understand your own. Reminds me of my favorite astronomer, Carl Sagan, who says that you must study other planets to understand our home, the Earth. So yeah, really insightful. Thank you for that. And also, well, taking like us beyond the obvious and the tradition that has formed in 15 years. Kind of bizarre when you put it to that perspective. So I think we're open for an insightful discussion. We have the Catchbox microphone up there, so just raise your hand if you have any questions. And also, you can pop them up in the chat, but because we don't have anything yet, I will prompt the first one. This touches on what you said in the very end about that it doesn't have to be brand marketing that everybody does, but they can find their own way. I see that like with a lot of money you can leverage, for example, big celebrities and stuff like that. But what would you say is a innovative approach to marketing beyond UA that small companies can do?
I think that's a really great question. And I think when thinking about marketing, you also have to think about the audience. Who is the audience that you are reaching out to, and how do you reach out them to? That is about the marketing. And I think one great example of like one I was really like amazed about. How many of you have played Stumble Guys or know the game Stumble Guys? I think that's a great example of a game that reaches its audience in a really smart and unique way in that space. So if you think about the audience, and this is me guessing, but the audience for Stumble Guys most likely is children and young people. They play to socialize. Like one of the play motivations is to socialize, the social aspect of playing the game. And they are also an audience who are into watching streams, watching YouTubers play the game. That's a great form of marketing as well. So then they have been able to leverage that in growing the game to begin with. So really not with a brand. It looks unique, they have their own style, and it looks like the kind of games that that audience also consumes otherwise, so it looks familiar, but then they have completely found their own way of scaling it up. Brand appeals to our audience, but our audience is entirely different. The dynamics are so different. So I think that you really have to start from the audience and see what serves the audience the best.
Thank you. And perhaps as a follow-up question to that, for starting companies who don't yet have any established audience, with this idea, where to begin?
I think that's, again, it's an excellent question. And especially because I feel like as an industry, our understanding of audiences actually is quite shallow. We know some of the audiences better than others. We know AAA audience better than the casual audiences. We understand why people play, but still there isn't that much to begin with. But I think like when you are getting started, I think like really think about who is the audience that you want to reach out to, who is playing your game, and why are they playing the game? What do they get out of it? Is it about relaxation? Is it about competition? Some sort of power fantasy? And then build the game around that. Look for what other games there are serving the needs of these audiences already. Play games yourself. I think playing games gives you a lot of insight, especially the successful games. Gives you a lot of insights into the audiences, like what our audience is after, and then start from there. Talk with your industry colleagues. I think that's one great way. Nowadays we also have a lot of industry reports. We have many services which you can use to figure out the audience. I think Playtest Cloud is a great service to be trying out if you're not familiar with that service. Familiarize yourself with that. It's a really great tool for understanding people and why they play games to begin with. But really, I think you should start asking, like, why does my audience, why do they play games to begin with?
I would like to take this answer and poke the audience a bit. How many of you have ever developed a game based on what you think is a great idea for a game? And how many of you have ever developed a game thinking about the audience first? Yeah, perhaps something to try out based on that.
Actually, it took me almost 30 years to learn this, though. So
yeah,
like I guess
he's offering a shortcut.
Yeah, I'm really hard-headed. It took a long time, and it actually came through an experience. Like I have been working on so many games that failed to reach their audience. The feeling is devastating. Like I guess many of you know that already. Most games fail. But when you spend a year, 2 years working on a game, then you release it, and there's no audience, no one likes it. It feels bad. You have poured your heart and soul into the game, and then it doesn't work out. So then I started asking, like, how do I take a shortcut? How do I know as early as possible whether I should be working on this game? Because if I should not be working on this game, I would rather work on a game that works, that reaches its audience. So then find shortcuts to do that.
Now we have one question from the chat, so I will prompt it. So what do you think are some of the most important key roles in a starting mobile game studio?
That's an excellent question, really, and also a really tough question. I think, so key roles. So I think to begin with, I think you should keep the team as small as possible, because then the more smaller you are, the leaner you are, and the easier it is to navigate the creative space and find an idea that resonates with the audience. I think, of course, you need programming talent, you need art, you need design. You shouldn't underestimate any of these, but then also need some, because we all want to be making successful games, also commercially successful games. You need to have some level of business acumen as well. So how do you actually turn the engagement into revenue for the company? So I think, and that oftentimes it might be like a responsibility that someone in the team can carry, or then more and more nowadays there are people who actually like specialize in that as well. So I would really look into that as well. But maybe that's the core.
And well, my follow-up on that is that exactly if you have the core team, do you think that it's better to have someone who is kind of the business specialist there thinking in these terms, or would it be good to have this way of thinking integrated throughout the team?
I think in ideal case, I think there's, like we talk about the T-shaped people, so that people like can carry more than one role, and that's always beneficial, especially in small teams. I think if the whole team has a business mindset, I think that's even better. So if you really like, you all have a drive to be building a business and creating a business.
I have a question here. As you said previously, that most of the games that you're like making don't make it in the end. Do you have any insights or something to help with setting the mindset that you don't get too attached to the games that you're working on?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So how you don't get too attached? I think it happens eventually, like because the games industry is tough in a way that you have to be passionate about what you do. You can't just start working, and if you don't have the passion for that, the game, for sure, it won't succeed. So you have to have the passion. If you have the passion, how do you not become too attached to it? I don't think that that's possible. So I think then, in my mind, the solution is that you have to find out as early as possible whether this is the game that I should be working on or not, and be really diligent about that, and try to like be mindful about that, because there are so many pitfalls on the way that might make it look like you're working on something that works, and then it eventually doesn't work. So I think like test early, and also like especially reach out to the customers, understand who are your players, and reach out to them as early as possible, and do it before you have written a single line of code. Do that already then. Ask them, would you play this kind of game? But then also along the way, test as often as possible. I think that would be the advice that I would give.
I got a question about Merge Mansion. So I was looking after the game, but I found out about the game because of the really great marketing material you guys had. So did you build up the brand and the marketing before you build the game? Because the game doesn't showcase on the marketing material itself, but it gets people hooked on the lore, on the characters and everything else. Then they come to the actual game. So which was it, the game first or the brand?
They pretty much went hand in hand, but the idea, long story short, I have been speaking about this earlier today. Long story short, we really started from the audience, and for that specific, we did a detour first, but I won't go to that. So we failed first, and then we did a pivot. But we started testing. We decided that we are making a game for casual audience, and we started testing what kind of game they would want to be playing. For casual audience, they oftentimes like story for context of the game. So then we started testing different premises and different themes for the game, and that's how we found the theme and premise where there is the grandma and granddaughter and closed-off mansion. Back then our idea was that we want to be building original IP, but we really didn't know in practice what does it mean. What is original IP? We just wanted to create something unique and original. But then along the way, and especially when we launched the game, we actually learned what is the IP that we are building. So in a way, we have had the idea of IP to begin with, but we really didn't know. We only had direction. We didn't know exactly where we were heading, but now we have been learning along the way. And I think the further we go, the hungrier we get with the IP as well, and how to actually utilize that, and how to like take full advantage of the grandma and the setting.
Following on that topic of like trying and failing and so on, you said earlier that it took you 30 years to figure this out, to go kind of audience first, and that you've been working on many products that didn't find their audience in the end. Tell us about your history a little bit. So when did you start? I don't think it was like you worked on like 30 years and then just blim, it came to you, but what was the process, and on which product did you work when you started having these thoughts?
So it actually only really started when we with Metacore. The history of Metacore actually goes to year 2014, and back then the company was called Everywhere Games. Our focus was on making smartwatch games. We launched 4 games, 3 of those Apple chose as Game of the Year. We were clearly the most successful and best smartwatch game developer out there, but unfortunately the market didn't exist. We didn't have competition, and at this stage we were thinking about where to go as a company. Do we stay focused on smartwatch games, wait for the market to mature, or do we do a pivot into some other area? And at this stage we started paying attention to, so this was in 2018, we started paying attention to the market dynamics and how it all functioned. And we figured out that the market is immature to begin with, that we are not, as a market, as an industry, we are not really player focused enough to begin with, and also that we really can do more to start from the audience, truly start from the audience. And also I think then we had also the first tooling in place that actually enabled us to do that better. So we have been able to do all kind of focus groups before, but that has been quite a heavy process, expensive process. But then in 2018 we bumped into, I mentioned Playtest Cloud. We bumped into Playtest Cloud, which actually was really, really handy tool to be able to start doing this. So I think it is like it started back then.
And again, a follow-up, because this is an interesting train of thought and something for us to learn on. So basically, from the point of view of small businesses, small companies, again, practical ways of reaching the audience which are not too costly, or if they are an investment for an early company, like where to put the money?
Excellent question, and it's really tough question also, and also because some of these areas actually are capital intensive.
Yes,
so exactly. There are these areas. So for example, casual audience, an average casual player downloads 1 game per month. How do you make sure that they download your game? It's an audience that they are not actively looking for new games. How do you reach out to them? You have to think about the dynamics there. We really heavily focus on performance marketing, which is capital intensive, because that is the way to reach out our audience. But then there are other audiences, for example, children and young people. They are extremely viral. Casual audience is not really viral to begin with, but for people, for children and teens, they are super viral because part of their player motivations is socializing, playing with their friends, playing the same games that their friends are playing, belonging to a group. So then if you utilize that, so if you build a product that is viral, build a product for this audience that's viral to begin with, then you can reach out that audience in a more efficient way. So then really, and then if you think of different audiences, there are different dynamics. So again, you have to start from the audience, understand the dynamics, and then play by those rules.
So at least what I'm getting is that some audiences are easier and cheaper to reach and can play to your benefit.
Yes, so like children is one example, but then also others. Like some audiences are, like some of us do more work to discover, like look for new games actively, for example. Casual players don't do that. They don't actively look for new games. They don't want to learn new mechanics to begin with, to generalize. But then there are audiences who get excited about mechanics. Word of mouth, that's a big thing still. So that's the traditional way of spreading content. Like, when is the last time that you heard about a new game or a new TV series or a new movie from your friends? That's the traditional word of mouth. I think there are different dynamics, and you really have to dig deep to understand these. And then you're able to make big hit games, even with less capital.
Now taking one question from the chat, a big one. So how does Metacore see the landscape of gaming industry in Finland now and in the future?
That's a
Boom.
tough one. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm the right person to really say that. I'm not sure if I have enough
Speculation is okay.
But yes, so I'm really bullish about the games industry overall, and especially in Finland. It's really I have been in the industry for a long time, and I have seen how it's been growing, and I have seen the momentum building up, and I can see that momentum going on. It will keep on going on. The more talent we have here, the more success there will be. And I think it's only a matter of time until we see a bigger success. The last big success was Supercell some time back still. There will be a bigger one. There will be the next one. And I think we just have to focus on growing the market, and eventually things will happen because there is this momentum already. So I think from that perspective, if we just keep on doing these things, and I think games industry is thankful industry for this to begin with, because there is such a strong community and people really want to give back and work on developing the industry. So if we just keep on doing this, good things will happen eventually. So I think from that perspective, I'm really optimistic about the future in the industry for decades to come.
That's a very beautiful thing to say in an IGDA meetup, so yeah, points for that. I had a thought about this brand marketing aspect, that now we've been talking about a product brand, but how do you see tying up with a company brand or possibly other brands, personal brands or something like that? Any thoughts on expanding the idea of brand marketing?
So we are investing into the brand of the game. We are also doing employer branding. So that's the way to differentiate ourselves and tell about ourselves, tell about the opportunities we have to offer to others. So we also invest a lot into that. So employer branding, it sounds so what do we do? Is there really substance in there? But we really want to be creating the best mobile games company to work for in the world. That's the goal that we have. And I'm like I said, I'm programmer by background. I know what are the requirements for me to be working. What is the environment for creative work? I understand that we are different. As people, we are different. We need different kind of things. So we want to find these ways and enable them for people so that we can really excel at work. Because oftentimes when we excel at work, we actually feel the best. We want to achieve things. So that's our goal. So then employee branding is just about echoing that message, telling about that message. I think it is super important, even though it might sound maybe a bit superficial, but I think it's important.
Yeah. And do you see a way to tie that to the product marketing in a way that it actually makes a feasible strategy?
I don't know if you should tie it to product marketing, but again, I think it depends on the audience you are also aiming for. So for us at the moment, Metacore and merch management, they are different things, two different things. Metacore is the employer brand, and merch management is the consumer brand. But maybe there are other areas where actually the dynamics would be different.
This is again something that we could look benchmarks from other industries, how company brands connect to product brands and how it kind of ties together. Because again, this employer brand versus product brand is a very traditional thing in games, I believe.
I fully agree. One of the greatest companies, and this is a bit of a cliche, but I think one of the greatest companies is Pixar. I think they are a great brand. And they are for consumers, but they are also for the industry.
Now, today you've been, wandering around in the university and at the University of Applied Sciences, and we've been discussing game education programs and all of this. So there's lots of education perspective on this day. One thing that we didn't have the opportunity to touch on and would be sufficient to ask here as well. How could this reaching those audiences and interviewing them and connecting with them in a practical manner, what are the real ways to do that or integrate that to the games development education? Any ideas?
Again, I think that's a great question. I think, like I said, there are many tools already that you can be using, but I think it is also an area where there is expertise. So I can do some of that, but I'm not an expert, so I wouldn't be doing it in the best possible way. We have two researchers at Metacore who do that, and they use tools like questionnaires, interviews, and all of that. So I think it is a space of its own. I think we should be digging deeper into how that is done, and then apply those learnings to the games industry and to education to begin with. But I think it doesn't have to be actually that complex.
For the starting teams, I believe that making the questionnaires and coming up with the questions is the easy part, and how to get people to actually respond to them visible enough with a kind of a low cost or free strategy. That would be the kind of the thing to crack.
Yes, I think it would be, but I think even that wouldn't be that expensive. There are different tools that you can do questionnaires with. Then it might be about targeting, how to find the exact people that you want to speak to. But even then, I think that is a solution that is solvable. I think that's a great question to be asking ourselves, like how could we do this?
But also something that needs to be thought of actively and actually thought of as a development step when we are talking about these programs and what kind of skills we teach for the next generation of games tech.
Yeah, and I think like for our people, so we have people who have been working in the industry for a long time, but for them it's oftentimes eye-opening, like when our researchers are interviewing players, like why they are playing or how do they see things, or because there are so many different ways of seeing things. I think already in the game team, like when you play a game and then you discuss it, you can see that there are so many different perspectives into the game, like how people see it, how they perceive it, and how they feel about that already is like an enriching experience. But then especially hearing it from players, especially if the players really are playing your game or certain game, if they are fans of the game, I think that is eye-opening oftentimes.
Giving the opportunity. Yep. We have the catch box. Just a second.
Yeah, thanks. Probably one thing we haven't been discussing, like the financial markets are getting tougher. Like money has again a price. So I think like scaling up the game company, it involves a lot of money, and I think when you have a good track record, getting new money is quite relatively easier. But like in the beginning, what kind of story you should tell to your financiers?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's again a really tough question, and especially because there are these global cycles that we go through, and when there's a downturn, there's a downturn. And even if investors would have money, and actually many of them have pressure to invest, they are not investing because of the overall climate. So then I think, and also because investors oftentimes, for them, time is on their side, and time is not on the developer's side. So they always ask for more, oftentimes, unless there is competition, who gets to invest first. But I think, so one thing is that times will get better. So the market overheated, I would say. It was like, it went over, and I think it's healthy that there is the correction to the market overall. And things will get better eventually. But even today, good companies do get funded. So there are some of these winners. It's just tougher, but companies do get funded. And in some cases, it's about vision, founders' vision for the industry. Oftentimes, then they are more experienced. More often, it's about KPIs. In one way or another, you have to have KPIs for the game. It's about commitment. So if you just are thinking about setting up a company, once you get funding, you won't get funded. You have to show commitment. So there are different ways that you can improve the odds. But so fewer companies do get funded, but they still investors have money that they have to invest. So they're looking for the best ones.
We still have a couple of minutes. Traditional question that we ask our speakers is that what is your personal favorite game? But in addition to that, since we've been talking about studying the market and studying the good examples, I would also like to ask that, like, what is your personal favorite, just entertainment-wise, but what is also a game that you have studied and has given you these ahas that you really kind of remember?
Well, actually, there are so many. So nowadays, I don't have time to play any more PC and console games. That's a shame. I would really like to do that. But I do play a lot of mobile games. I feel that's part of my job. Luckily, that's part of my job. I have to play games. But also, I have been playing so widely that I don't anymore know what is my gaming taste. Like, what kind of gamer am I really? I have been, like at times, I have been forcing myself to play certain kind of games that I haven't been feeling that they would be for me. And actually, I found out that actually I enjoy this kind of game as well. Marvel Strike Force, I don't know if anyone remembers that game anymore, but that was a really great game. Initially, I really wasn't into it, but then once I got through the hurdle, I actually played it for a long time, until I got kicked out of the guild I was in. I wasn't the most active, but not least active either, and I got kicked out, and that was a shame. I stopped playing that. But I think one of the more recent ones, and this maybe is also a bit of a cliche, but Monopoly Go. I have been amazed about that game because of many reasons. And again, it's not a game that I would have picked up otherwise and played, but because I wanted to understand what that game is about and what that phenomenon is about, I started playing it. And there are so many interesting things about that game. I think like oftentimes if you ask people in the industry, they ask, is it even a game? But then if you look at the audience, they clearly see that as a game, and they see it as entertaining. I think that's a fascinating case example from the recent past of a game that's made me challenge how I see games and how I see the dynamics and all that to begin with.
Thanks for sharing. Any last questions? If not, then cheers, Mika. This has been very educational and insightful and fun. And now we are off to continue to more free networking. So there's snacks, there's coffee and stuff like that. Thank you for all the online watchers. See you next time in 1 month. And this was the Expa meetup of January.
Thank you on my behalf.